Welcome to the first tutorial for the Intro to Maya exercises. In this specific tutorial video, what we're going to talk about is the Move Tool exercise. But before we do that, let's just talk about how we navigate in the viewports, and let's make sure that everything looks correct on your screen. If you are just opening up Maya, make sure we go over to our workspace, and we should be able to go to Maya Classic. That should look exactly like how my viewport is currently arranged. From there, let's just talk about how our mouse commands work. So remember, everything is controlled by holding down the Alt key and either using the left mouse button, the middle mouse button, or the right mouse button commands. So if I were to use the left mouse button and the Alt key, that is going to allow for me to orbit. And right now it's orbiting just around the center axis of where I currently am looking. So that's just how that's going. However, if I have something selected, generally with the F button, that's going to allow for me to focus. So if I go to this cube right here, press F, and now if I perform the left mouse button and Alt for orbit, I can actually orbit around that specific model. This is extremely helpful when we're working in complicated scenes to make sure that we're able to pinpoint exactly that location that we're working in. So if I were to use the right mouse button and Alt, so hold down the Alt button and right mouse button, that's going to allow for me to zoom in and out of the scene. And again, as we just saw, if I had something selected and if I hit the F key, that will bring focus to that area as well. So let's say we're really far away. We know we need to get closer there. Just press the F key, and it's a lot easier than trying to zoom all the way in using the middle mouse or right mouse button and the Alt key. The middle mouse button and the Alt key, that's going to be our pan, and that allows us to kind of move left and right or up and down across our scene. And it's really in conjunction of all of these different settings. This is how we actually get this to work. So by rotating around, by panning and zooming is how you'll want to navigate. And this is something you want to practice. At first it feels extremely foreign, believe me. I'm used to picking up different pieces of software. I know how that can feel. But after a while you'll not even be thinking about that. You won't be thinking about hitting the Alt key or the mouse buttons. You'll just it'll be second nature for you. So let's talk about how we can actually change our viewports. If we hit the space bar button, that's going to allow for us to open up the quad view because we are currently in perspective. So spacebar, quad view, and if I want to go in the top, I'll actually just hit the spacebar again. Now I'm in the top, spacebar out, front, side. So each of these is extremely helpful because in 3D you do not want to work just through one perspective. You're going to have some very strange things happening if you model or animate just by looking through one viewport. You want to realize that 3D has depth, and you might think that a cube is sitting right next to another cube, but it's actually an optical illusion. It's maybe like 30 feet away in space. So always make sure that you're not only orbiting around your models, but you're changing out your viewports to make sure that things are looking the way they're supposed to. So how do we actually move these objects? Well, if I click by using my left mouse button on an object, I have my Move tool selected. That is the W key if it is not currently enabled. You might have just selection, which is the Q key, and you can just select objects. That'll prevent you from actually moving them, because if you watch this, if I have this cube selected, or I think I have it selected, maybe I haven't had enough coffee in the morning and I'm selecting this and I did that. Or maybe I clicked it and I thought I just clicked it, but I actually did a double click and I shifted that just a little bit. I'm going to hit Control Z to go back, and you'll notice this jump back to where it was. Just a little bit. Now that may not be that big of a deal right now, but later on if you're working on a character and you need to make sure things are as symmetrical as possible, if you have a couple vertices, which we'll talk about later on in the program, maybe a couple different points like these that you thought were in one position but they actually got skewed, everything's going to look very strange. So it's very important to make sure that if you just meant to select an object, use the Q key. If you are going to move something, use the W key. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to have the W key selected, I have an object selected, and you'll notice there's a couple different things we should look at here. There's this red arrow. That red arrow is basically representing the direction of the x-axis. The blue is the z, and the y is the green. So each of these can be moved independently, or they can be moved with two axes at the same time, or they can be moved in 3 by that middle mouse button. So it depends really what you're trying to do. There's different reasons for different things that you're doing. So try those out and see which ones you think you need for the job. So now let's just move these out into these cages. You'll notice you can't move these. They're grayed out. I have those frozen on purpose. That way, when we're working with those, you can't accidentally move those around. We're going to use this cube, move it over, move that over, and you'll notice I'm moving pretty quickly using the orbit, zoom, and pan. That's just a thing that becomes second nature. This will happen for you as well. It is something that I would say you shouldn't be too intimidated about. If at first it feels like it's just taking longer than watching me do this, I've been doing this for 16 years, so obviously I'm going to be able to do this a little bit faster than what you guys are able to do. But be patient. You don't run up a mountain, you climb it, and that usually takes some time, right? Maya is certainly a mountain. So I'm going to just move this one over here and move that one into here. Again, rolling around my objects, trying to make sure that this is matched up as good as possible. That's pretty good. We can also do something by going into the shading in our viewport right here. Go to wireframe. It's also the 4 button on our keyboard, and that allows for us to just see inside the model and to make sure that we have this lined up as well as possible. This is acceptable for what I'm looking for. So this is the move exercise, and that is underneath the move layer, underneath the channel box layer editor. And so you'll notice if I turn that off, hit the V key. And now for the next exercise, for the next video, we'll be going into the move and rotate. So I'll see you in that next one.